Hi, today we will explain the plot of the movie called The Vampire Next Door, which was released in 2024. Let's get straight to the story. This film tells the story of a 20-year-old introverted young man who is fascinated by his new neighbor who is very beautiful and charming, without knowing the age of the woman who's about 247 years old. Before the meeting, the young man named Cameron was having a wet dream with a woman named Diane, who was the girl he had been eyeing since high school. When he woke up, he felt very disappointed because the fun activities were just a dream. On that morning, his father and mother gave Cameron advice to prepare for his future while he was off from college for a month, either work according to his major or another job that he likes. Due to the wet dream, Cameron was late going to his workplace at an ice cream shop. Then, the manager of the shop named Lenny felt angry at Cameron's tardiness. Meanwhile, in the area outside Cameron's house, a beautiful woman comes and becomes Cameron's new neighbor. Back at the ice cream shop, Lenny asks Cameron to work overtime that night, but Cameron refuses because he has a date with Diane. Lenny, who knows that Diane is a beautiful girl but very suspicious to him. He doesn't believe Cameron's words and finally asks Cameron for a photo as proof. After returning from work, in order not to be called a liar, Cameron came to Diane's house and secretly wanted to take a photo of Diane relaxing in the yard. However, unexpectedly, Chad and Jason, who were bullies since Cameron was in high school, caught him and then threw Cameron's cell phone. Diane, who heard the commotion, immediately helped Cameron, and Chad told her that Cameron wanted to take a photo of the girl secretly. However, Cameron pretends to deny it, and when he wants to prove it, his cell phone is run over until it doesn't work at all.
Cam?
No, I wasn't taking pictures. I was texting you.
Why was your phone in the street?
Well, he threw it.
In the evening, after arriving home, Cameron peeks at the incredible view from across his bedroom window. He saw his new neighbor changing clothes. Unexpectedly, the action was caught by the woman. Cameron, who felt panicked, immediately went downstairs to have dinner with his parents. Moments later, someone rang his doorbell. When he saw who was coming, Cameron panicked even more because it was his new neighbor, who he had peeked at earlier. After the door was opened, the woman changed to Diane, which made Cameron confused and speechless. Diane also invited Cameron to a place to eat to accompany her, who was bored at home. To note, although Cameron has feelings for the beautiful Diane, but he has never expressed his feelings, so Diane only considers him a friend. Moments later, their high school friend Martin shows up and Diane codes Cameron not to call her. Both Diane and Martin are awkward when they meet, so Martin immediately rushes away. A confused Cameron asks why, but Diane still doesn't want to tell him. After dropping Cameron off, Diane finally explains her problem with Martin that happened when she was in high school. At that time, Diane invited Martin on a date at a party which Martin also agreed to. However, Martin never came, and until now the cause is unknown. Hearing something that broke his heart, Cameron was confused about how to respond. Suddenly, he saw his neighbor staring, and he immediately went inside the house. In his upstairs room, he again saw his neighbor staring at him. When he was confused, he was suddenly surprised by a woman's voice from behind him. It turned out that the woman was her neighbor who had unexpectedly moved into his room. The woman scolded Cameron for daring to peek at her. Cameron apologized. Even though Cameron had admitted his mistake, the woman still did not want to leave and forced Cameron to take her to a place as a form of punishment. Cameron had refused on the grounds that he was not too fluent in driving a car. But finally, Cameron complied with the will of the woman after he was threatened with being reported about the peeping problem he did to his parents. A few minutes later, they arrived at a factory. The woman named Victoria confiscated the car keys so Cameron wouldn't go home first. Cameron also witnessed a strange man inviting Victoria in and thought that Victoria was a hired woman. Not long after, Cameron is scared when the strange man appears with a cut on his thigh and also screams for help. Victoria also appeared in the form of a vampire, and she immediately sucked the man's blood to death.
He's on the car.
You need to calm down.
On the way home, Cameron felt angry about what he had just seen, but Victoria just smiled while threatening to do the same thing if Cameron refused her orders. After arriving home, Victoria reminded him in a slightly threatening tone to take her again tomorrow night at another place, and she gave Cameron a kiss before returning to their respective homes. The next morning, his father calls to ask about the bloodstains on the car, which Cameron immediately wants to answer honestly. Unexpectedly, Victoria appears and interrupts the conversation while introducing herself as a new neighbor to Cameron's father. Victoria makes up a fake story about the blood on the car. She says that last night a deer hit her car, so that the animal lay down, but finally got up and left. After Cameron's father believed the story, Victoria asked permission for Cameron to be her temporary driver to drive around the area in exchange for giving him a salary which his father happily agreed to. Long story short, at work, Martin meets Cameron to ask for help in getting close to Diane and explains that he didn't go on a date because he was too nervous about Diane's perfection. Convinced that Martin and Diane's relationship will not work out, Cameron agrees to Martin's request and makes the man very happy. Later that night, in accordance with Victoria's assignment, Cameron drives her to another place. Not long after, someone fell from upstairs and caused the windshield to be stained with blood again. Although Cameron looked frantic with fear, Victoria remained relaxed while enjoying the blood in her mouth. Later, Cameron cleaned the glass before going home. After arriving at the room, Cameron was surprised by Victoria's sudden appearance beside him. The woman said she wanted to explain something. Then she explained that she was a 247-year-old vampire, and a group of other vampires killed the man she loved in 1980 for refusing to join the group. Due to the death of her lover, Victoria decided to hunt down all members of the group as a form of revenge. Hearing that the two victims yesterday were not human, Cameron smiled happily and became more excited because the action was like in a movie. Then Victoria returned to her house. The next morning, Martin suddenly came and entered Cameron's room to ask for further help in approaching Diane. Then, Cameron returned to help just like that. In the evening, back at Victoria's, Cameron enthusiastically asked how many more vampires needed to be executed. Victoria replied that there were only 2 left, and the last one was the main perpetrator of her lover's murder. After arriving at the destination, Cameron decided to come in while acting like a movie actor, which annoyed Victoria, because Cameron had been asked to wait in the car. Finally, Victoria finds her vampire target, who works as a security guard, and the old man realizes he is being targeted. The security guard vampire pulled out a gun. Then Cameron tried to help Victoria, so that he was shot until he fell to the floor. Fortunately, after Victoria finished off the vampire, Cameron woke up and said that he was only pretending to be dead, so Victoria could attack. However, Victoria got angry and explained that the action could get Cameron killed. She also reminded him that she was a vampire with powers, while Cameron was not.
Cameron, you fool!
I was playing dead.
What were you thinking?
After that, Cameron asked for permission if he couldn't take Victoria tomorrow night, because he wanted to accompany Martin, who was going on a date with Diane, and he got permission. The next day at work, Liz, who is Cameron's co-worker, invites him to go to a concert, but unfortunately, he refuses. Without Cameron realizing it, it turns out that Liz has feelings for him. In the afternoon, after returning from work, Cameron also accompanied Martin, who wanted to go out with Diane. There, he became the connector of the conversation between the two. After that, he intends to leave so that they can get closer, but they prevent him from leaving. Soon, Victoria, who had been watching for a long time, appeared and helped Cameron, who wanted to leave. After making it out, Victoria asked about Diane. Cameron was immediately honest that Diane was the girl he had wanted since high school. When he was asked why he wanted to help Martin, Cameron answered confidently that Diane would definitely refuse. After walking around together until it got dark, Cameron stopped to show them his workplace. They happened to find 2 people who always bullied Cameron. Victoria intends for the 2 people not to bully Cameron anymore by claiming to be her boyfriend, but it has no effect. Then, Victoria asked the 2 to fight each other so that the problem would end that day.
I didn't say anything.
Well, get up. Strategy,
Thanks.
Cameron.
Although Cameron initially lost, but with Victoria's advice, he was able to win the fight. Because of the victory, Victoria asked them not to bully Cameron anymore. On the way home, Cameron feels pain in his hand, and Victoria gives him a liquid taken from a necklace that has the power to heal any wound. However, after drinking it, Cameron was panicked when she was told that the liquid was Victoria's blood. Cameron thought he was about to become a vampire, but Victoria immediately denied it. After his body recovered quickly, the liquid had the side effect of making Cameron horny. While in the room, Cameron tried to overcome his lust while picturing Diane. Suddenly, Victoria appears beside him and whispers that she is willing to accommodate Cameron's lust, so Cameron can't refuse. However, before they continue the activity to the core, Cameron's father enters his room to ask something. Interestingly, he even apologizes to the 2 for interrupting. That made Cameron stop his actions and said that his heart only belonged to Diane. Victoria was upset that he didn't do that. The next morning, Martin is disappointed with Cameron, who yesterday left him alone so that his date was ruined, because their conversation became stiff. Not wanting to be blamed, Cameron argues that maybe Martin's relationship with Diane can't continue. On the other hand, Victoria is seen meeting Diane, who is working at a clothing store, by pretending to be a buyer. Back to Cameron at work. During break time, Cameron tells Liz about the match between Martin and Diane and thinks that he has gone too far to make others happy while he forgot about his own happiness. Liz again tries to invite him to a concert tonight with the excuse of relieving fatigue. Unexpectedly, Cameron accepts her invitation. Later that evening, after Cameron is ready to meet Liz, he is surprised by Diane's car, who is visiting Victoria's house. Cameron was curious. When peeking out of the downstairs window, he witnessed that Diane was already familiar with the vampire woman. Even the two of them did something unexpected. Due to this incident, Cameron forgot his promise with Liz, which made her very disappointed. Long story short, Cameron wanted to resign from his job, but unexpectedly at work, Liz hit him because Cameron had left her waiting last night. After arriving home, his mother gives Cameron a new cell phone, which is immediately used to help bring Martin and Diane closer together as they chat. After carrying out a careful plan, Diane finally yields to Martin because she hears his romantic words.
I thought it would be a distraction to have my phone on the table.
Especially when my focus is on you.
See, I knew there'd be a sweetheart.
Later, Martin takes Diane to the city park and they do some fun activities there. After hearing the conversation through the connected earphones, Cameron unexpectedly gets jealous and wants to stop the two because his feelings for Diane can no longer be masked. When they were at Diane and Martin's place, Diane whispered towards Martin's earphone that was connected to Cameron. She said that Martin had gotten her while throwing away the earphone. Unexpectedly, it turned out that Diane did not intend to do that activity with Martin, but instead, she bit Martin's neck, which showed that Diane had been a vampire all along. While fleeing to work to ensure Liz's safety, Diane meets him and shows that Martin is still alive while giving reasons if Martin really wants great power, and Diane also sincerely transmits her vampire abilities so that Martin is more confident in socializing. Cameron, who was disappointed that Diane had not told him who she was, made Diane apologize and reasoned that she was afraid Cameron would go away. Since she is hundreds of years old, Diane says that all the men she's loved have aged and died, so she doesn't want to keep Cameron as her lover. After arriving at her room, Victoria appeared and said that Diane was her last vampire fugitive. Because of Diane and Cameron's closeness, Victoria deliberately approached him so that Diane would be provoked and easily executed. With her vampire abilities, Diane came after sensing Cameron was in danger. At that moment, Lenny, who was stalking, appears and threatens to tell all the residents that Diane is a vampire after his suspicions have been proven. Without thinking, an emotional Diane immediately bites him and then enters Cameron's house. Without waiting long, Victoria immediately attacked Diane with a special sword, without listening to what Diane wanted to say as a form of retaliation against her lover. A fierce fight ensued. When Victoria was cornered, Diane told the truth, that the killer of her lover was not her. On the contrary, Diane intended to help Victoria's lover while dying, so she had to be banished by her group. Hearing this honesty, Victoria apologized and planned to form her own group with Diane.
I met your master when he was passing through.
Sorry. There's no way that I could have known.
When everyone decides to leave the city, including leaving Cameron forever, Diane kisses Cameron one last time and says goodbye. However, before they leave, Lenny, who is also going because he has become a vampire, hands over his position as ice cream shop manager to Cameron and asks him to work with Liz. The next morning, Cameron goes to Liz to apologize for all his mistakes and tell her about the events he went through during this month with the vampire. Although Liz responds with disbelief, she still forgives Cameron and the two start the day running the ice cream shop. The movie ends.